Welcome. Today I am here with Aaron Guyett, and Aaron is a devoted husband, father, Marine Corps Staff Sergeant, combat instructor, living.fit education director, the founder of Innovative Results, Battle Ropes Education, and Leaders of Leaders. He specializes in helping people develop physical, mental, and spiritual strength that they never thought possible. Guyett's warrior heart and mind become contagious for everyone around him as he chooses to teach, coach, and lead from his deeply forged values of sacrifice, service, and love. He delivers uncompromising results to teams, organizations, and communities with both hard skills like aerobic capacity, speed, agility, quickness, power, strength, and movement variability, and soft skills like positive neuroplasticity training, communication development, leadership development, honesty, trust, and love. Guyett is a leader and teacher that lives and breathes his often quoted, "Next one, best one." And I personally have had the pleasure of working with Aaron on the process, which is a post-traumatic growth-fueled men's adventure retreat up in the woods in northern Canada. One of the most amazing, I think, experiences of my life. And I got to connect with some incredible people like Aaron, who has been really helpful to me in a couple of spots in my life. And Aaron is the kind of person who's just been ready for this COVID-19 shutdown for a long time and is thriving. So I wanted to bring him onto the podcast to talk a little bit about how he's thriving in this kind of a situation. So after a very long intro, welcome, Aaron. It's great to have you here.
It's great to be a part of this, Dr. Brian. I would say right off the get-go, adventure, I think, is putting it lightly.
Well, yeah,
adventure is a term, but post-traumatic growth. So remember, the traumatic growth. It's very challenging adventure, but it's an adventure nonetheless.
Exactly. I mean, an adventure within yourself in a lot of ways too. There's a lot of exploration 100%. Of both the outer environment and you. And I have to figure out a better way to talk about that, because it's without giving away too much, because part of the entire experience is not necessarily knowing what's happening.
Yeah.
It defies explanation, even if I could explain it.
No,
it's incredible. And
I've talked about it now probably on 7 podcasts, and so this will be my 7th or 8th. And you're right. Like, one, you don't want to give it away, because the unknown is the mystery is part of that adventure, is part of that challenge. And it's a very important piece, as well as it also provides some of that trauma that you have to work through, right, in order to have the growth on the other end. So no, I just want to echo and repeat what you said. Like, it was an absolute joy to work on something to that level with you and with the whole team, and all the cadre that were there, as well as all of the participants. And I'll look forward to working with you again, and hopefully we get to work together sooner rather than later.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. We're both hopeful and prayerful that we get to see each other sooner rather than later. But yeah, for sure. And then I've definitely been preparing for this moment since I was like 9 years old. I remember building my first get out of Dodge pack and putting it in my closet, and like, okay, if somebody comes and takes my parents hostage, I don't know what was going on in my brain, and maybe it's just a boy brain and that's just how it works, or maybe I was strung a little bit tighter than others, or whatever the case might have been. Right.
Now I do have to ask, what does a 9-year-old's get out of Dodge pack consist of?
It was ridiculous. So it got better when I took 4-H survival, because then I was actually putting some survival things in there that would probably actually work. But it was my mom's old school 1970s hard pack, or had the external frame, had this sack on it. I tied basically a blanket, like a wool army blanket, which is, that's okay. But if I had to escape in the middle of an Idaho winter, yeah, right, that wool blanket would not have been enough for me to survive overnight.
Perfect. So some slight technical difficulties, but we are hopefully back. So this started sort of preparing for a situation on your own. Maybe not specifically this one from the sounds of things, but something along the
Yeah.
lines, maybe even a little more intense. Started with you really young
Yeah.
and continued to develop as you got older too.
Yeah. And obviously, joining the Marine Corps just made me a little bit more technically and tactically proficient. Um, I mean, and the thing is, like, you start, like, for me, I'm a numbers driven guy. I tend to be a numbers driven guy. I don't want to just go off of only a hunch. I'll look at history as a best judge or whatever. So if you look at, like, scenarios where the proverbial shit hitting the fan, like, actually happens, what happens, and most people think, like, oh, looting happens and people die and people get their stuff ransacked or whatever, which I'm not going to say it doesn't happen, but it just happens far less than the numbers bear out. So really, actually, community tends to happen a little bit better. Human innovation tends to happen a little bit more. But having what they would call a deep larder, where you've got some store of some food that preserves well over time, having a couple of different tiers of not only security but your basic utility stuff, so like water and electricity and things like that. If you like those creature comforts, if you don't like them, then you just better get used to getting really cold and and it getting really dark. So yeah, so basically, like, the property that I live on, it was almost turnkey sustainable living and homesteading. We just have to work the ground and get the livestock and all of that stuff. So we're slowly in that process. The only thing that I wish I would have had in this moment is, and I don't think the utilities will go out, but just in case they do, it would have been nice to have solar. So I only have basically, we say, like, in the survival or prepper, two is one is none. And so always trying to have a three-tiered system for food gathering, three-tiered system for water, three-tiered system for security if you need it, three-tiered system for any of those things. And so I only have two for my electricity, a generator, and then the grid. So it'd be nice to have solar or whatever. So, but clearly, obviously, I mean, I could go on and on about this. I can nerd out about it at length. But really, the main thing is, like, we humans, we are way too smart, way too innovative to let a tough and trying time get us down. Like, when you start to be proactive and start making moves to improve your situation, whether you're in an outdoor survival situation where you get lost, or you're in a pandemic where you have to hold in place, things start to immediately get better, not only for your own psychology, but just get better in general for your standard of living and your dwelling, because you're doing things to improve it day in and day out. It's part of your daily routine, because now you've got that time. So.
And that concept of routine, I know we've talked about before, in terms of something that has been really, really important for you for a lot of years, and yours
Yeah.
is above and beyond what would be expected of most people, I think would be a good way of putting that.
Yeah.
But can you talk a little bit about how the development of, and specifically in your case, a routine that can be taken anywhere, has
Yeah.
been helpful in this situation?
Yeah. So actually, I don't even know if I've shared this. So with you, I've shared it maybe on a couple of other public forums or whatever. But so I'll start with, most people think that my routine came from my strict upbringing with my strict mom and dad and their work ethic. That's the huge thing that I was able to pull from them. The huge value that I was able to pull from my parents was this high level of work ethic, like just working all the time, maybe to a fault, right? And then, but actually, the routine didn't really happen there. Then people will be like, oh, it's because you're a Marine, and they're, Marines are disciplined and they have all this stuff. And, like, let me just be the first to tell you straight up, like, the personality of a Marine coming in will tend to be the pervading and default personality when they get out of the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps structure doesn't tend to stick with the Marine once they leave the Marine Corps, which is why so many people, when they get out, want to get back in, or say, oh, I miss the good old days, or oh, I miss that. When really they don't miss the good old days, they just probably miss that structure that was put in place for them to build, sort of their life on. And now they don't have that. And they also don't have that community and that connection and that brotherhood. So of course we miss those things when we're away from it. But it actually wasn't that. It was, I was burning the candle at both ends. I got out of the Marine Corps active duty. I just came back from Iraq. I had all sorts of my own psychological problems. Plus I was 20 stupid years old, making, some decent choices, or some good choices, and some really crappy choices in terms of environment and who I talked to and who I hung out with and all of those things. And I ended up in jail. Then I ended up getting bailed out of jail, and then I ended up, having to go through essentially like kind of rebuilding my life, because I was looking at, where I ended up. I'm like, man, if I keep making these crappy decisions, like if I keep making only the good ones, then, probably good consequences will come from it. But I was also making really crappy decisions. I'm like, man, if I keep making these crappy decisions, then I'm going to end up either dead or in prison. And I don't want to end up dead. And I don't want to end up in prison. And at the time I was married to my now ex-wife. And so I got put, basically I was going through like anger management. I was separated from my wife at the time, and I was just kind of on my own. And this is kind of the beginnings of me getting into the fitness industry. And I was like, something's got to change. So I just became a sponge to any sort of wise counsel that was getting spoken into my life. And I remember listening to a speaker at this event, and he was like, hey, get up early in the morning and say this mantra: I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized, and just keep saying it until one day you wake up and you'll be awake and you'll be alive and you'll be energized, even though it's super early in the morning. So that was the beginning of my morning routine, or my routine was I got up at like 3:45 in the morning, because I had to get to the gym that I train people at, which is clear across a couple of cities or whatever. And I had to get there before 5 a.m. before my first client. And so I would wake up at like 3:45, 3:30 or whatever, 0 dark 30. And I would just tell myself, like speak to myself, because there was like roommates or whatever in the room with me. I would say, I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized. Like under my breath, I would go into the bathroom, I'd close the door, I'd turn on the light, and then I would say it a little bit louder. I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized. I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized, as I was doing my showering, my shaving, all of that stuff. And it was crazy. After about a week and a half, as soon as I would wake up, I would feel awake, I would feel like ready to go, and I would feel energized. And I was like, man, if all I have to do is like say a couple of things and kind of get myself pumped up and convince myself that you're awake or you're alive or you're energized or whatever, then what if I take the next step in that, and the next step in that. And so that began, that was sort of the beginning step of my morning routine, which now, like, I don't have to get up and say I'm awake, I'm alive, I'm energized. Like when my alarm goes off, I get up. Or if I choose to not have my alarm go off, when I wake up, I get up, I start doing my morning routine, which is, for me, it's a shower. And then I'm immediately like ready to go. You can talk to me. I can hold, I can talk intelligently. I'm cognitive. It doesn't take me, 8 cups of coffee to finally be able to associate with and socialize with other people. Be cognitive.
You'd cut off at be cognitive. I apologize.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Brian, you see that I'm dealing with the mountain internet here.
The one issue about being able to live completely off the grid is the connectivity is a little tough.
Yeah,
we're mostly back.
So we use a line of sight internet, which is basically almost like a radio tower or something like that.
Yep.
Unfortunately, and especially during this time, I've found that our bandwidth is just a little bit reduced because more people are on the internet.
Oh, absolutely.
Normally when I do podcasts, I have an office that I drive down to, and it has way broader bandwidth, and it's a whole lot better. So I apologize. I should have warned
Oh,
you on the front end.
it is more than worth putting up with a little bit of a disconnect here and there to have
All
you
right.
on this. So for what it's worth, it's not an issue.
All right, cool. Yeah, so basically, now when I wake up, I'm totally cognitive. I can hold an intelligent conversation. I can be social. But from that, it was like, okay, how do I invest in myself? How do I invest in my belief system? How do I invest in my understanding of that belief system, understanding of my philosophical perspective, and all to be able to serve other people at a better level, all to be able to love my wife and my children and the people that are in my spheres of influence at a higher level. So I can take that time, in 0 dark 30 where no one's around and it's just me and the Lord, or it's just me and my cup of coffee, or it's just me and my own thoughts, or my journaling. And so how do I develop and continue to improve myself so that I can be a better husband to my wife, so that I can be a better father to my children, so that I can be a better business leader in my business, so I can be a better Marine for my Marines, so I can be a better leader in my community, or be a better leader in my church. And so now, obviously, the morning routine has expanded. Whereas when I owned a gym, it was about 30 to 40 minutes, maybe about an hour before I saw that first client or did my first coaching session. But then when I moved up north, I basically moved here so that I could preserve the sanctity of my morning routine. And so now the morning routine is about 2 hours long. And it involves, prayer and scripture and positive neuroplasticity training, and thinking through and writing out, my vision of my future, and the things that I want to say or do for my wife, the things that I want to say or do for my kids, the things that I want to say or do in business. Really building out an intentional schedule and an intentional leadership development process, not only for myself, but for the leaders that I'm trying to develop around me. And then also obviously working out, deep, breathing routines or meditation, anything that's going to help me improve my neurology, my psychology, as well as my physiology, so that I can just be a better servant and a better leader in all the spheres of influences that I've been blessed with. And so now, I almost see my life as like, it's just to what level can I serve? To what level can I lead to improve the people that are around me? Even if it's at the cost of myself, but understanding that if it's at the cost of myself too much, like, I'm not going to be able to lead, or I'm not going to be able to serve. So ensuring that, I'm keeping my sleep regimen solid, or my nutrition regimen solid, or workout regimen solid, or education regimen solid. All of these things play into that. But again, starting small is, I think, the way to win. We build our habits, and then our habits sort of create our lives, right? And I think that's I totally botched the James Clear quote, but that's totally a James Clear type thing. Also Charles Duhigg, The Power of Habit, or James Clear, Atomic Habits. And those guys, those two books are just incredible if you're trying to build a morning routine, or a routine, even if it's an evening routine, maybe, where you can truly change your entire life. And sometimes it's just that small little tweak, that small little addition into your morning or into your evening that changes everything, right? It's that one little belief that once you believe it, it's going to change the course of your entire life, right? It changes how you view the world. It changes how you interact with the world. It changes how you value the world. And I don't know, it's like, it's beauty in the details. It's beauty in the seemingly monotonous routine, right? Or just make it a habit. Like everybody probably brushes their teeth every morning. You could do the same thing with positive neuroplasticity training. You just got to start small. Like, how did you learn to brush your teeth every morning without thinking about it? You know, it didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen because it's an instinctual desire to brush our teeth. Like, we humans are adamantly opposed to brushing our teeth as a survival mechanism, but we've learned that skill, and now it's become a way for us to survive, because now we keep our teeth healthier so we can eat, and all these things. So watching it play out with my kids has probably made it far more of a priority and far more important for me. So my wife just naturally is more empathetic. She tends to be more creative, tends to be a little bit less organized, a little less analytical. I'm obviously a little bit more organized, a little bit more analytical, and some of that I've grown into, but some of it has maybe just been a gift or a curse, whichever way you want to look at it, for my genetics and how I was raised. But I tell her all the time, I'm like, if you want to save heartache and pain, let's take the next 6 months, let's take the next year and build these habits and routines for our children, so that they don't have to think about getting dressed in the morning, brushing their teeth, making their bed, eating breakfast, doing their chores, doing some reading, right? It just becomes just an automatic and intrinsic outpouring of their life existence. Much like eating and breathing and pooping is, we can help build these things in so that they can live better lives, and still obviously they're still choosing to do the other things. But man, like, how incredible would that be to just you wake up and automatically you're going through this process, and at the end of that process you feel good, you feel ready to punch the day in the face, and you feel geared up, versus you feel anxious, you feel afraid, you feel uncertainty, you feel chaos, you feel all these things. Like, you're building in some certainty, you're building in some foundation at the beginning of their day. So we do a morning routine and an evening routine for our kids as well. And then the beauty is, it saves Carrie and I the heartache and pain of, you have to brush your teeth, just like being those nagging parents. Like, we're just like, okay, it's evening routine time. And then boom, they're off cleaning their room, brushing their teeth, getting their jammies on, pulling out books, getting ready to read, getting ready to pray, all these cool things that are just now just part of our household and part of our existence.
Well, that's a great way to do it. Brilliant in a lot of ways from a parenting perspective too. So I'm sure anybody with kids listening to this will hopefully be able to take some of that to heart and apply it, and make
Yeah.
be able to spend this time making their life easier that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, if you're not a parent, right, you can apply any of this stuff right now, just to your own morning or your own evening or whatever. But so Carrie and I, my wife and I, we went to an intentional parenting course, and basically the thesis of the course is like, so what intentional actions or intentional education or experiences are you putting your children into and through? Because naturally we can't just completely laissez-faire our way through our kids' existence. And so what intentional things are you gonna do, not so they can be better kids, to save the problems of parents, but more importantly, so that they can just be better adults, so that when they are free from you as parents, they're able to make decisions on their own. They're able to critically think things through. They're able to be contributing members of society, or positive lights that gleam for people in dark times, and all of that stuff. So yeah, we've taken upon ourselves to think through, okay, what are the future ramifications of making this call as parents? And then
Just for a minute
yeah.
there, we lost you. But no, I really appreciate the insight. I know we're coming up sort of on the time length that I'm aiming for, and I feel like this can very quickly turn into a Joe Rogan-esque 3 to 4 hour
Yeah,
thing
yeah, right.
if I let it.
Yeah,
So for here, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I feel like there's so much more to explore with you that I might have to get you back some. I will definitely be getting you back sometime. Um, for now, I will leave it there. I know I will get all your social media links and websites up in the show notes. Guys just listening here, definitely check Aaron out. He's an incredible resource in both self-optimization in a personal and mental sense, but also absolutely brilliant if you hear him go on about, I mean, honestly, just like molecular physiology and metabolism. One of the most well-rounded men I think I've ever met. So check Aaron out. Thank you so much for coming on. And, you know, change your mornings, change your life.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much, Brian, for having me. Honored, honored to be on the show. Honored to contribute. And yeah, hopefully, yeah, people are changing their mornings and changing their lives.